Little background on Mr. Ed Foulke, partner in the Atlanta and Washington, D.C. offices of Fisher & Phillips, LLP. Ed is also the co-chair of the firm's Workplace Safety and Catastrophe Management Practice Group. And prior to joining Fisher & Phillips, Mr. Foulke was the Assistant Secretary of Labor for Occupational Safety and Health, otherwise known as OSHA. Named by President George W. Bush to head OSHA, Ed served from April of 2006 to November of 2008. During his tenure at OSHA, workplace injury and fatality rates dropped to their lowest levels in recorded history. For more than 30 years, Ed has worked in the labor and employment area, focusing on occupational safety and health issues, workplace violence, risk assessment and prevention, whistleblower protection, and accident and fatality prevention. Ed has also served on the Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission in Washington, D.C., chairing the commission from March of 1990 to February of 1994. Ed was named one of the 50 most influential EHS leaders by both EHS Today in the years 2010 through 2013 and Occupational Hazards magazine in 2008. On a personal note, I first met Ed when he got sworn in back in 2006. Is that correct?
Right.
I was in Washington, D.C. It was a really nice day. I was invited to the event through the National Safety Council, and I met Ed and his wife at that time and began working within OSHA to help encourage advancing the subject matter of slip, trip, and fall prevention, which we've all heard statistics today that points to just how big the problem is. And over those years, Ed and I not only developed a friendship, but we had put together, and frankly, all the work was done by Ed and his staff, a framework for slip, trip, and fall prevention, which of course is one of the leading causes of occupational health and safety injuries throughout really all industries. And it was through that experience and knowledge that we came to know each other. And as many of you know, and hopefully Ed will address this today, OSHA is looking to publish, it's on their website right now, the revision to their safe walking and working surface requirements this June. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Ed, you may or may not know if it's going to happen. But either way, I'm confident that OSHA's revisions are going to happen before the president's term is up next year. So with that, let's go ahead and give a warm welcome to Ed Foulke.
Yep, thank you. All right, where's your thing? Oh, here it is. Oh, good. Be careful.
Yeah.
Once you're down there. How y'all doing? Good to see y'all. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. Where did they? Oh, okay. I have to look at this. I haven't seen one like this before. I understand we have some out-of-town people, like way out of town, Canada. Where's the Canadians? Come on, don't be shy. Is there any Canadians here? I thought there were some Canadians here. Oh, Canada. No, I never knew that's all I know. Actually, anyway. And we got some from England, which is one of my favorite countries to go visit. I've been there a number of different times. I am actually, I was talking to a person earlier, just up outside here from London, or actually Kensington, I think it was. And I noted that my ancestors came from Bala, Wales, and arrived in Philadelphia on July 12, 1698. So we've been here a little time here. But anyway, let's keep moving. We got to go ahead. We got a lot to go here. We're going to talk about this. And you notice what I have here. We're going to talk about safety and health update. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what OSHA, where OSHA is going. And I understand having that other people from other countries here. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about kind of give you an idea of kind of where we're going from a safety and health perspective, what we're currently looking at. When I was head of OSHA, I kind of found that it was kind of the same type of thing that when I was dealing with the Europeans, because I dealt with all the Europeans when I was there. I dealt with Canada, I dealt with Mexico, down in South America, and I also dealt with the Asian, China, mostly China. So. And I could see that they always were looking what kind of America was doing to kind of see what maybe that they should be looking at. So anyway, we're going to do that. And then we're going to do a reality check. And the reason I want to do this, I want you, because a lot of you, I guess, represent companies here. Some of you represent companies. Some of you actually assist companies on having great safety programs. That's what I want to talk about. And this transcends, it doesn't matter what country you're from here. We're going to talk about this and what you really need to be looking at, what we really want to do if we really want to help to have drive safety. I mean, clearly, slips, trips, and falls are the largest number of injuries that we have in the United States, period. Especially falls in construction, even in general industry. It's surprising the number of falls that we have there. So obviously that's a big issue there for the United States, and that's kind of why they're looking at the standard, the changes they made. We'll talk about that in a second. But I want to do a reality check. I want you to kind of take back with you and say, these are the things that we got to be looking at to determine whether or not we really got a great safety program. Because so many people, when I was head of OSHA, so many of the CEOs and company presidents that I would be talking to would tell me one thing, always one thing they would tell us. Ed, at our company, safety's number one, right? Is there anybody here whose company safety is number 5? That's a published number you put out? 4? Okay, you published 4. No, everyone says safety's number 1, and they think that. I got a lot of CEOs and company presidents that, you know, they really believe that because they see that all these heroes, all these safety policies and procedures that we have. Here's all the training that we do, all these things. All that stuff does not mean you have a great safety program. It means you got a bunch of paper. And we're going to talk about training. One of the things we're going to talk about is why this is so important, and it will be helpful to you all when we talk about training and making sure people understand how to avoid slips and trips, having the proper PPE, you know, those type of things to deal with that. But we're going to talk about a reality check because, unfortunately, nobody wants to talk about this stuff. They all believe, they want to live in a fantasy world that safety's number 1 and they got a good safety program. Now, they may not say it's world class, but they think it's between good and great, pretty much across the board. So, all right, now I keep going here. Let's see here. I want to first say thank you for your commitment to safety and health. The fact that you're here tells me that, you know, this is important, this is to you, that you want to make sure that employees, whether they be your employees or other employees around the world, are be able to go home safe and sound each and every night to their families and loved ones. And they don't get seriously injured and they don't get or killed. That's our part of our goal. And that really is the basis of what we do as safety professionals. I thought this quote from Vince Lombardi, and Vince Lombardi was a football coach, if y'all, for you and from Canada and Europe and that stuff. This is the real football, you know, the one where they hike it to a quarterback and then they throw the ball. Not this thing where they kick in the ball. That's not football, okay? Anyway, although I got a 2-year-old daughter, which is absolutely amazing, and it's a greatest thing. She can say, she sees soccer, football. She understands all this. Amazing. At 2 years old, I don't know. But Vince Lombardi was a very famous coach for the Green Bay Packers. And I thought this coach was very good. Winning is not a sometimes thing, it's an all-times thing. Well, the same thing with safety. If you don't believe that your safety program or your client's safety program or your customer's safety program has to be an all-time thing, then you're not going to have good safety. You're not going to have great safety, and people are going to get injured, and maybe they're going to get killed. So that's why this is so important. Now, I did want to make sure one thing. Before you left here, I wanted to make sure that when you left here and went back to your, wherever you're from, that you're able to go home to your family and spouses or whatever and tell them, you know, I had this crazy guy speaking at the conference here, but I got one good point out of his whole presentation. I got at least one good point. And that's my goal, is to make sure that you leave here, that you can at least say, well, Ed gave me one good point. So here is the safety tip of the day. Never take a sleeping pill and a laxative at the same time. All right? Very, 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 very important. All right, let that sink that in. Maybe you want to write that down so you don't forget it, because it's not in your handouts, because the stuff in that handout, the PowerPoint, does not have everything on my PowerPoint, so, for reasons, and that's just one of them. So, all right, now the second one, we need to know what the second, I got another second, the second safety tip of the day is very important, and this comes from Yogi Berra. Once again, for our foreign visitors, Yogi Berra was a baseball player and a baseball coach who had this knack of saying different things in an interesting way. And this is, to me, is very important, and this ties into safety. if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. So that tells us if we don't know where our safety program is going, if we don't know how we're going to get there, what is our goals, how are we going to achieve them, what things are we going to have in place, what metrics are going to be determined to make sure that, in fact, what we're trying to do is actually working. So that's why this is so important, because you got to see, here's somebody that ended up in the wrong place. They didn't have everything in place that they needed to be able to get to where they want to get. Getting to where we want to get is what? 0 injuries, illnesses, and fatalities. That has to be the thing. That has to be our ultimate goal. 0. And don't go and don't ever accept where because I get clients like this, and we're going to really work on our safety program. We want to get down to 0.4 lost time injury and DART rates. 0.4. Man, that'd be really good, wouldn't it, Ed? I'm saying, what the heck? Okay. You've told me now, based on this, that there's somebody, at least a 0.4, so it may be, depending on the size of your company, you're going to be injuring or maybe possibly killing 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe more people because you want to get down to 0.4. So tell me right up front, who was the persons that are going to get injured so we can go ahead and injure them now and get it over with for the rest of the year. We should never be doing that. Those are not our goal. That is a wrong goal to have, because unless you believe and your focus is always on getting to 0 injuries, illnesses, and fatalities, that is what has to be the goal. Not the ultimate, that is the goal, period. Every year it's the same goal. Now at the end of the year we'll decide whether we get there or not. But if you're saying you're going to get to 0.4, you've already acknowledged that you're going to have problems, that you're going to have people get injured. So that's not what you want to have. So we got to be careful about this. And here's another one here, another slip there, kind of full. See, we got to see. Once again, they didn't know where they're going. All right, I put this in here because I thought it was appropriate from a safety standpoint, is that the greatest mistake is to imagine that we never err. One thing we got to know, I make mistakes, you make mistakes, your employees or your customers' employees make mistakes. And our responsibility as a safety person is to ensure that knowing this is going to happen. This is going to happen. No matter what we do, if somehow something's going to go wrong, somebody's going to make a mistake, and it's not probably going to be on purpose. It's just going to be by accident. Somebody's going to go on autopilot. Somebody's just going to have a moment where they're just not thinking, and they do something. Our responsibility as safety professionals, as owners of companies, as managers of companies, or whatever, all our responsibility is as a basis for safety is to make sure that when they make that mistake that they're going to do, that they understand that they don't get seriously injured or killed. That's the basis of safety, period. If you want to talk about where basis safety is, that's where you start. That has to be our responsibility as safety professionals, or even owners of companies or managers of companies. We got to make sure that those people out there, when they make a mistake, don't get killed or injured, seriously injured. So that's the basis. And then we can add all the other stuff on top of that. We can do the behavioral-based safety. We can do the safety observations. We can do the leading indicators. We can do all kinds of stuff. The predictive analysis is the big watchword right now in safety. We can do all those things, but that doesn't do it. So we just got to start from there. All right, let's talk a little bit about our safety program. Well, and first of all, and once again, now we're kind of getting to stuff that's OSHA specific. And I want to kind of show you where we are, and from you that are outside the country, you can kind of see, here's where we're at. When we have OSHA going in and doing inspections, these are the things that they are finding. These are the top 10 things for the last 3 years as to what it was. You notice the first 4 are exactly the same. In the same order, I think. Wasn't in the same order? Yeah. All of them, all first 4 are all the same order. So this tells us these are the problems that OSHA is finding. These are the violations that OSHA finds. These are the things that employers aren't doing that OSHA finds during the inspection. So this list is actually very informative and can be used as a tool in order to say, okay, if this is the things that OSHA finds out, which one of them are applicable to my business or my operation, and what do I got to do? Am I in compliance with them? Are they things that we're finding? Because a lot of these things, fall protection, you know why they're coming out, why that's there? It's because people are getting seriously injured and possibly killed from fall protection. So OSHA's automatically coming in there, so we know this is a problem and this is why. So you need to realize this is one of the big issues for y'all, particularly in your industry, that this is number one for the last 3 years. So we need to be aware of all those type of things. But you can see this, and like I say, you can use this as a tool, or employers can use this as a tool to kind of see, are these applicable to my operations? Are we in full compliance? Have we eliminated these hazards? I put these in just so you can see how some of the fines that we've had, just so you're familiar with it. These are the top ones. And these are not all big companies. Most of them are big companies, but I've had 2 clients. Both of them have less than 50 employees. One had OSHA citations for $1.9 million, and one had citations for $2.1 million. So don't assume just because you're in a small employer that you're, or what I consider small, it's under 50, that you're not going to, that you can't get hit for a big amount of OSHA citations. So we have those type of things. But these are some of them just so you can kind of see those. And these are, this is my low-hanging fruit list. I put this in there because, and to tell you the truth, I am sure that even if you're from Canada or England or wherever you're from outside the United States, you can go and look at this list, and you can go in any facility in your country and find half of these things there. I'm convinced of that. I have no problem, because I know I can go into any facility in the United States and find half of these these violations, these top 25. And I'm not, and I'm not going to go through them because they're a whole series of things. But it's important to have it. Once again, this is a tool. This is a tool that you can utilize there, because there's certain things that you're required to do, at least from an OSHA standpoint in the United States. But like I say, I think if you looked in a lot of stuff, you're going to find the same things, these type of things. One thing I really is amazing, number 8, I don't know who takes those ground plugs out of the extension cords. I don't know who's stealing those things. I didn't know there was a big black market for those things. Just that little piece of metal. It just seemed kind of strange, but it's amazing. I can find those all the time. If I see a portable fan, one of those tall portable fans, 90% of the time they're missing the plug. 90%, it's amazing. I just go there and say, hey, how much you want to bet? You want me to go bet a steak dinner that doesn't have the ground missing? It's missing the ground plug. So I get a lot of free meals that way. So, but anyway. All right, and here's some of the others. But once again, these are tools. These are tools to help you in saying, okay, these are some of the problems that OSHA is looking at. And the reason I put this is not in the top, this is my top 25 list. This is not OSHA's top 25, but I guarantee OSHA is going in there, and you can go into your facilities and find half of these things, or your clients' facilities and find half of these things. And this is just tools that you can help them to improve their safety program, maybe taking it from good to great. So that's the kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. Once again, this is an American thing, but I don't know if I don't remember. I should know. I don't know. I'm sure that the Europeans, I don't think the Chinese do, and I don't know if I'm sure Canada does. But anyway, this is our national emphasis program. These are the things that OSHA is saying. These are problems that we consider to be very important, and we're going to target these areas for inspection. And so this is the ones that they're kind of doing here. Amputation's a big thing. You got amputations here in the United States. You got amputations over in wherever y'all from, okay? Whichever country you're from. You're going to have that same issue. And to be quite frank, some of the countries, some of these other countries you go to, China, man, they got their machinery, their machine guarding is really in need of improvement, to tell you the truth. So, but that's the way it is, But they're moving. They're really making great strides there to that. But this just gives you an idea of where it is. And I don't know about nursing homes. I suspect you all have the same problems we do at your nursing homes over in Canada or over in England or wherever over in Europe, whatever it is. I'm just telling you. But these are the things that we're looking at. These are the things that OSHA is focusing on. So you need to be aware of that. Just kind of look at that. The reg agenda, okay, now we're kind of getting into a little bit of something what we'll talk about in a second about the walking working surfaces. These are some of the ones that OSHA is looking at. A lot of these pre-rules will not get through. There's a proposed rule in silica that will come out before the end of the term. That is their number one standard that they want to get out. This is something that they focused on. The unions are big on this issue. They're going to cut the PEL in half, even though that the information that was provided showed that that's not economically feasible but they don't care because that's what they're going to do. That's just the way it is. The only good thing is the business community, for the first time that I've ever seen, really put in, was really good about putting in the economic data that they need to put in to be able to have this thing thrown out by the courts. So, because there's no doubt that they can't wait. They were going to go cut it in half. I wanted to kind of move it and leave it the PEL where it is, because our problem is if they cut the PEL in half on silica, first of all, we lose the foundry industry in the United States. It's out of here. They can't make it. And there's going to be some question about the construction industry in the United States there, because it's surprising the amount of silicon with them cut in half. Now all of a sudden they're all brought into this issue. So they're going to be either that, you're going to be seeing everybody wearing respirators on construction sites. So it's going to be very interesting to deal with those type of things there. The beryllium, they may do that at the same time. I don't know. The cranes and derricks, we had put out the cranes and derrick standard when I was there. It was supposed to kick in. Certain provisions kicked in. They get the crane operator certification was supposed to kick in last year. Excuse me, at 14. But it was really weird. This was cranes and derrick standard was what they call a negotiated rulemaking. In other words, there were a whole bunch of groups of people in there involved in this whole process, supposedly all the stakeholders. And they finished this up, and they came out there, and they published it. And then OSHA, two things happened. OSHA finally looked at it, started figuring out how they were going to force this thing. And it turned out that if you were an employer and you had a certified crane operator, OSHA couldn't cite you because you had a certified crane operator. So everything they were responsible for. OSHA didn't like that, so that was one of the reasons they pulled it. The other reason was that there were a number of training companies or organizations that do training on crane operators, particularly the unions. And they found out that they couldn't do capacity. They could do types, but they couldn't do capacity, I think it was, is that how it worked out. So all of a sudden, they weren't going to be able to do any training. So they got a little upset, so they kind of moved that on that one. So they got OSHA to pull it, and you're going to see that capacity will be thrown out. You're going to see there's going to be some changes to the OSHA reg that will make sure that OSHA can cite employers even if they have certified crane operators. So. The obligation, the next one here, under the OSHA standard right now, there's a review commission case that says that OSHA cannot go back on record-keeping violations more than 6 months from the time they issue the citations. OSHA has always in the past been going back 5 years. But this case said, no, you got a 6-month period. You can only go back 6 years. When you issue the citation, you can't go beyond from that time 6 months back, not 6 years. 6 months back, and before OSHA would do 5 years. So what happened, so what they're trying to do here is they're going to clarify that there's a continuing duty, thus being able to go back 5 years and cite employers for violations in record keeping 5 years old or longer there. Consensus standard, this is one thing they've been trying to push to move, they're trying to move on that. Confined space and construction probably will be coming out in the next couple of months. It's been signed off by the White House, and so it's coming out. Walking working surfaces. Now here comes where Russ was talking about here, and I got some more stuff in a second here. I would say that Russ is correct that it will get out before the end of the administration, but it will not be June. They haven't, we'll just go to it in a second. You'll see it there, so we'll talk about that. Improving and tracking workplace injuries and illnesses. This will require that if you have 250 or more employees, you will have to be quarterly electronically reporting, sending in your OSHA 300 data to the OSHA, and then they're going to publish that data so that plaintiffs' lawyers and union organizers and community activists can see what bad employers you are. So that will be that. So there. And then access to medical records. This is kind of new. They said they're going to go, this is going to direct final because this had, I mean, they just made the proposal and they're just assuming they're going to go direct final, and if nobody objects to it, then it'll become final. It'll become a final rule. We'll see what happens. All right, here's the working surfaces. As you can see, the standard has been going on for a good bit of time here. The original NPRM is Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. This would, when you have this, you can have different ones. You can have this really technically 2 types. We got Advanced Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. That under our system, under our rulemaking system, and under the American Administrative Procedures Act, an advanced notice of proposed rulemaking would say, we are thinking about doing a standard. we want to get your data. Please send us your comments. And by the way, we're probably going to hold a hearing on it. Please come and talk at the hearing. And from that, we'll decide how we're going to craft the standard. The notice of proposed rulemaking, you will actually have in the Federal Register published a draft proposed standard. It will have everything in there. And that's what they did back in 1990, In April of 1990, we've sent it, OSHA published the first notice of proposed ruling for working surface. There was an actual standard that they proposed. And as you can see, they went through all that. Well, you can't see it, but there's a whole bunch of times that they did hearings and all this other stuff. And I had actually signed off on that one before I left OSHA. But OMB said, don't send it because we can't get it processed before the 20th of January of 2009 was when Obama took over. So that's why I left the week after the election, because I couldn't get anything else done. I've done everything I could do. So the new group, the Obama administration political people, they then come and looked at it, and they decided they want to revise this thing fairly dramatically. Well, I shouldn't say dramatically, but they made a lot of revisions. And they filed a second notice of proposed rulemaking in May of 2010. Their focus is much more in line with, as I read this stuff, and it's fairly, I got a copy of it, it's about that thick, the Federal Register notice. But they're really focused on fall protection. They're really hung up on fall protection. And once again, a lot of the stuff that this administration is focused on is driven by the unions. And they've always, under the construction, and if you look under the construction fall protection, you can't have a body belt. Technically, in the general industry, you can. And that's going to go all away. All that stuff, they're going to be updating. Basically, fall protection will be the big thing. But then they're going to be doing a lot of other stuff on working surfaces and looking to go. They want to get to a point where they understand that walking surfaces is a big issue, that we have this slip, trips, and falls is the #1 injury in the workplace. So they want to address that. And so that's why they're going to be looking at a thing, and then they're going to be talking about adding some of these things. So they did, like I say, they had public hearings back in January of 2011. They've been studying the record, and they said that this number, the 615, that number always changes. But I suspect they'll want to get this one out before the administration ends. Now, I was told by OMB that they would not take any more standards in October. No, it must have been October. Either September or October of 2008. So that means, and assuming that the same thing happens again at the end of this administration, so September or early October 2016, OMB will say, don't send us any more standards. So they will have to have got it over to OMB and have it start review before that time if they're going to get it out. So we'll see how that goes on that. So, and as I mentioned, the proposed rules intended to address workplaces that are leading cause of work-related slips, trips, and falls. Will update the general industry fall protection. Will limit possible eliminating climbing certain ladders without fall protection. And we'll emphasize it's going to be a performance-based standard. So that does give employers a little bit of a leeway as to how you comply with that. So it's going to be, we'll be looking at that, see how they do. Chemical management, this is another one that's big. And I don't know, the Europeans actually probably are better about getting these type of things. But we have a problem with our permissible exposure levels for chemicals. Right now, we probably only have PELs for probably 400 of the 4,000 chemicals that are out there, okay? So obviously, we're way behind on that. And they've tried in the past to update the PELs. They tried to en masse back in the 90s. They tried to do an en masse update of the PELs, and the courts threw them out, said you can't do that. So it's just so hard for them to update a PEL at a time. So they've been looking. They actually ask them information and says, well, what can we look at instead of looking at PELs, basically? Then instead of us looking at PELs, what else can we look at? And I think that what we're looking at here is control banding. I think this is what they think they can do, go to control banding, even throw out the PELs. They don't even care about the PELs. Require employers to just go to control banding, which will result in them having employers, once again, determining what the level is. So you'll have to do that. So we'll see how that works out. I'm not exactly sure there. But anyway, they extended the comment period to October 9th. I don't know if they'll finish this one in time. I kind of doubt. I'd be surprised. Severe Violators Program. This is a program. This is not part of the reg agenda. This is a program that they've been very much focused in on. This is the bad employer, the bad actors. They love to call them bad actors. I never used that term when I was an assistant secretary because I just thought it was a derogatory term, bad actors, and I was trying to be more. I wanted to be more positive about things. I want to have people want to have great safety. I wanted people to try who didn't have great safety to go have. If somebody really was what they would call a bad actor, well, they'd get the enforcement stuff on that. So, but if you have a fatality and a willful violation, if you have multiple willful violations, if you have an egregious case, you can be put in the program. If you get put in the program, they're going to have a enhanced follow-up inspection at that site. They're going to have nationwide referrals to all your facilities. Now will be put on a priority inspection list for wall-to-wall inspection throughout the whole country. Even if you're in state plan states, you'll get inspected. They're going to put out a really nasty press release, and that's part of this administration's thought. They talk about this as a way to shame employers into having great safety. It doesn't work, but that's what they think. But that's the way, so they think that enforcement will get to zero injuries, illness, and fatalities, which is also a false premise there. But you can see there, they're going to be able to, if you don't follow everything exactly, then they can go to federal court and get you for contempt. So, focus on whistleblowers. Yes, this has been a big area. OSHA has been very much focused on the last couple of years on whistleblower claims. People who are complaining about safety issues who somehow get retaliated against. So they've added more people. They're changing it. They're actually changing the cause determination. They're going from a preponderance of evidence to kind of a reasonable person test, which makes it easier for OSHA to make and the claimant meet their burden of proof. They haven't moved that far yet. They've talked about it. They've announced that they're looking at going this way. I'm sure they will before the end of the administration, because they want to make it easier for whistleblowers. They think that when I was head of OSHA, we roughly had 5% of the claims that OSHA, whistleblower claims that they looked at had merit. Now that number has jumped up because, if nothing else, the head of OSHA says to all the compliance, whistleblower compliance officers, 5% is too low. There are more people are getting, are retaliated against than 5%. But that's, once again, his belief based on his personal philosophy. And of course the unions have also pushed this a lot. They've been very much focused on saying that employers are underreporting injuries, illness, and they're also retaliating against employees. But, once again, but they've also added online. You can go online. You go to the OSHA website. The very first thing you'll see is file a complaint. Right on the top there. And you click over here, and it comes up on the screen. Put your name, address, phone number. Put your company's name, address, phone number, your supervisor, and then if you don't exactly know how the employer retaliated against you, there's a whole series of boxes you can check. So it makes it really easy to do that. You push submit, and it goes there, and they'll send an investigator and talk to you, and then if they think you got any type of claim, they're going to go forward on that. So, but anyway, and then they did a thing on safety incentives there, and that's one thing I noticed there. But it's basically, they take the position, if you have what I call a negative safety incentive program, i.e. you have where you kind of encourage, and let me give you an example. You have a safety incentive program that if any employee does not have a lost time injury the whole year, they get a $100 gift card. Okay, that's your safety incentive program. Joe gets injured. And because of the nature of his injury, he got an amputation. His tip of his finger got cut off, and he had to report that. That was reported. Come the end of the year, Joe doesn't get the $100 gift card. OSHA considers that you have now retaliated against him because he has utilized his rights under the safety program. So, anyway, so we're going to go that. So that's where they look very much focused on this. So, I need to come down here so I can see a little bit better. Can you see me over here? Well, now I'm making it tough for him, but I can see you all a lot better. See, and I can wander around and see what everybody's doing there. I love seeing this kind of stuff here. Temporary employees. I don't know if you all have temporary employees or you have clients that have temporary employees. You need to understand this is a huge issue for OSHA. I mean, a huge issue. And of course, unfortunately, it was one of my clients that had the seminal case in this one, and it was a really bad situation. An employee, temporary employee, gets killed on the job 2 hours into the shift on his first day on the job. So it was a very sad type of situation. But anyway, but these are the things they're going to be asking you. If they think that one of the first questions in an inspection is they're going to ask you, do you have any temporary employees? And if the answer is yes, they're going to say, well, please tell me, let me see your contract. Let me see the training that you've done on them, on those employees. Let me see the hazard assessment that you've done and provided to these employees so that they know the hazards associated with it. They're very much focused on this. And then they're going to say, if these employees had if they had any injuries or illnesses, and if they have, then they're going to say, then you need to go and make sure that they're on your 300 logs. Because if you supervise employees if you supervise temporary employees, their injuries go on your logs. It's just required. That's part of the requirement. That's that. All right, this was the big change here too on record keeping. This is what's right now. We're getting a lot of people trying to come back up here, make it easier for you. I know you. They went from the SIC codes to the NACE codes, which was a good change because there were all these companies that just didn't fit in a SIC code because they were so old. All the new tech companies and all that stuff, they just didn't have it. So they wanted to do, so they changed that. So that was a good change. And as a result of that change, about, 25 new industries who previously were partially exempt. And when I say partially exempt, it meant that they didn't have to do the 300 logs. Now, those 25 industries now have to do the OSHA 300 logs. Never was there a change in who was required to report certain things. And in the past, all employers are required, if you had a fatality prior to January 1st, 2015, if you had a fatality, you had 8 hours to call OSHA. If you had the hospitalization of 3 or more employees, other than for observation, you had to call OSHA within 8 hours. Come January 1st, they changed. Fatalities stayed the same, okay? But now, if you have the hospitalization of 1 employee, and that's much more frequently, you're going to have that situation than having 3 people get injured from 1 incident. So now, if somebody is hospitalized, other than observation, an inpatient hospitalization, in other words, they're admitted to the hospital, then for treatment, then you got 24 hours to call OSHA. And they're going to ask some questions to you about that and make a determination how they want to do it. If it's just 1 employee, they're going to send you a form called rapid response, and they're going to ask you to fill it out. Do not use their form, okay? You don't want to use their form. You want to use do your own investigation. It's an accident investigation. Do your own accident investigation. And then give the results. They want the results back in 4 days. That's why they call it rapid response. So you need to be looking at it, and then they'll make a determination to come. Now, if you have 2 people or 2 or more people injured, more than likely they're going to come out and do an inspection. But you have, like I say, you got 24 hours to call OSHA if you have the inpatient hospitalization of 1 employee from a work-related injury. If you have an amputation, and what they define as amputation is loss of a fingertip. It's not a digit. In the notice of proposed rulemaking, it talked about loss of a digit. When the final rule came out, it just said fingertip. So if you lose a fingertip, you have 24 hours to call. If an employee loses a fingertip, you have 24 hours to call OSHA. So let's keep going here. I'm going to keep going because I'm running out of time. Let me get the last one. Excuse me. Loss of an eye. That doesn't happen too often, but you need to be aware of that stuff. Okay. This is corporate-wide. They're talking about corporate-wide settlements. I don't know why they got away from them, and now they want to go back to them. I'm not exactly sure where they're going on that, but I've been told that's what they've been talking about doing. Here's the different agencies. You have an accident. These are the type of agencies that all can show up at your door. If you have, depending on the type of accident you have an explosion or something, you're going to have all these things. Remember the Imperial Sugar explosion down in Savannah? Most of these agencies showed up, okay? And you're going to be having to deal with them, or your client's going to have to deal with them all at the same time. And guess what? It's not that easy. So you need to be aware of that on that thing here. Here's potential civil liabilities. We're seeing more and more cases being brought against employers for safety violations. But what's really surprising is we're seeing more criminal liability, particularly at the state level. But there is some, because OSHA has criminal penalties, but they're misdemeanors. So there's not too many, I bet when I was at OSHA, we would refer 2 or 3 or 4 cases a year to the Justice Department for possible criminal prosecution. The others are, there's just the, But where I'm seeing it, well, here, let me kind of go here. Look at this. These are the federal things. There are federal felony things that they can tie into. If you're providing false statements to the OSHA inspector, they might go into this. Now we do have a fatality, or a felony. Obstruction of justice, we're destroying evidence or whatever, we're misleading people. That's going to get you in jail. Fraud, destruction, falsification of documents, all these things. And then you have the state criminal laws, and this is where I'm seeing most of the criminal action being brought from safety violations in the United States at the state level. Because you don't have to have, you can have manslaughter, that doesn't require negligence, okay? Manslaughter can just be, or maybe it is kind of negligence. Criminal negligent homicide, reckless endangerment, all these things that they can bring actions against that are a lot easier than the feds. And we're seeing a lot more of that all the time. All right, so now we've kind of talked about what OSHA is, and I'm going to try to put out, I got 10 minutes, is that extra good? I don't want to go over here. People got other people I want to hear. All right, this was for the Brits. He who fails to plan is planning to fail. Winnie, was he winning? I don't know. Anyway, come on, let's go. Oh, I love that. Hey, here's the next step of the day. I got a couple more in here, so I thought you might want to remember. Anyway, I know the Canadians know about baseball. I don't know what the Brits do, but anyway. Yesterday's home runs did not win today's game. So this applies directly to safety. Just because you had a great year last year doesn't mean you're going to have a great safety year this year. It's a continue everything. Every game is new. Every day is new with respect to safety. It doesn't matter what you did before. It didn't matter what yesterday was. It doesn't matter how good your safety program you thought it was. Things are changing in the workplace. You've got to be constantly improving. This is a continuous improvement thing. Safety is continuous improvement. Some people think that once they get to 0 injuries and illnesses, they can get off the station here at this station. They've arrived. No, you haven't arrived. You just stopped. You're at a stop and you're going to the next station. Because safety continues, you got to continually improve, and every day you have to do it over again. So that's why I thought this was a great little quote here from Babe Ruth. All right, I'm going to run through some of this stuff here, but these are the things that I think when I'm looking at when we're trying to figure out how can I go from a good program to great safety, how can I go from great to world class? I mean, these are the things that you obviously want to get, you want your clients to get, you want to move these type of things there. And these are the things. So the question is, if you have a company mission, vision, value, and I think all this stuff applies around the world. It doesn't matter. It's not just an American thing here. This is everything. Matter of fact, I'm on the American Society of Safety Engineers, their technical advisory group for 45001. 45001 is the standard that's probably going to be finished up. It's an international. It's going to be an ISO ANSI certification system. 45001 will more than likely replace 18001. May replace NE10 in the safety realm. And I've been on this committee now for 2.5 years as we're developing it. And these are the things I'm going to talk about here, are the things that are going to be in this program, that are going to be in this consensus standard. And it's an international standard. We've got over 100 countries that are involved in the development of this standard. Fortunately, I don't have to go over to those meetings. I go to the American meetings, and that's enough because it drives me to all this stuff dealing with people. And I'm a word person. Lawyers, you know how lawyers are kind of wordy people and stuff like that. I'm a word person. This is what this word means, or this is what it's saying. And some people say, oh, we can just put whatever we want. I go, no, you can't put everything. We've got to be precise. So I probably get all kinds of fights that went over to the other when they had all the countries get together. So. But anyway, the question is, if you've got a mission, business, value, is part of safety of your company, is it a true core value of your program? It used to be I would go and see, when I was head of OSHA, I would talk to people, or when I knew I was going to be meeting with some CEO, company president, I would ask my assistants to get their lost time engine illness rates and their DART rates and compare that to their industry average. And then I go on their website. You know, when I get there, I'd be talking to the employees, and you know, once again, what would the president CEO tell me? Hey, Ed, and Mike, it was very nice to meet you. You know, at our company, safety's number one. I go, oh, okay, I've heard that line before. And you know, that's really interesting. But you know what? I was checking the safety's number one. Let me ask you this. I asked my people to check on this, and your injury and illness rates and your DART rates of your companies are above your industry average. And the CEO would then immediately turn to the safety person. And the safety person was now on the spot. And what would they say? Oh, Ed, we're in a dangerous industry. They had to build an excuse. We are in a dangerous industry. Or this was the one I got a lot to. You know, Ed, we do a lot of training. We train our employees constantly, and they don't follow our rules. You know, we constantly do that. They don't follow our rules. So what are we going to do? Well, something tells me your training sucks. Whoops, I should have said that. But it's true. And I'm going to show you about training in a minute. We're all going to take a test. We're at a university, so you had to have a test. You didn't think you were not going to do a test beforehand, did you? So, we're going to have a test when it comes to training. So, prepare. You got any caffeine, take it so you're wide awake. You want to do it. And the guy doing the paper back there, he's going to have to go back there and help him there. So I see a couple of y'all on your Blackberries. I'll be coming back and seeing you on that. So get prepared. Oh, and that was the other thing. Then I said, well, you know, I was looking at your, I said this to the CEO. I was looking on your website and I saw your mission, vision, value statements. Always, they go, yeah, we really worked hard on that. We had, you know, we really are focused on our mission, vision, value. We got a lot of input in there, and we had that. And I said, well, you know, that's really interesting. You know, you tell me safety's number one, but I look on your mission, vision, value, particularly your value statement, and I don't see one word about employee safety. So how can safety be number one if you don't even say it in your mission, vision, value statement? It don't work. You're lying to your employees. And if you don't believe it, just think about it. Don't tell your employees that safety is number one, but go ahead and, you know, make sure we get that production done. And if it's not in the mission, vision, values, you know, you only need to go back to your companies. Look, see what's your mission, vision, value, particularly your value statement. Is safety a core value? And safety can coexist with productivity as a core value, but it can't be trumped by productivity, which is what the case is on 90% of the companies in the United States, and I suspect maybe even a higher percentage around the world. So we need to be looking at that. So, does your company have defined safety goals and objectives? Once again, don't tell me safety's number one, or here, we're going to zero. This year, we're going to zero injuries, illnesses, and fatalities. Go out there and get it done. That ain't nothing. That ain't crap. You've got to tell people, okay, here's our goal, but here's how we're going to get to it. Here's the things we're going to do so we can get to it, and here's the things that you're going to have to do to help us get there. And then we're going to have to put together some materials or metrics that we can look at our stuff, the things that we're doing, putting in place, the programs we're putting in place. Let's look at the metrics of them to determine whether or not these things are actually working, or whether or not we got to zero and we were just lucky. Because none of that stuff we put in worked at all for us. We just were lucky. Because statistically, you can get to zero injuries, illnesses, and fatalities in 1 year, maybe 2 years, 3 years. It's not, you can't drive, and have a lousy safety program. It's not, you can't continually do that. But statistically, you can get zero injuries, illnesses, and fatalities 1 year and have crappy safety. Okay? So we need to understand those things. If we're doing that, eventually somebody's going to get caught up. And unfortunately, as a safety profession for decades, we looked at injury and illness rates, we looked at DART rates, we looked at workers' comp mod rates. Those were the things that we constantly monitored. They were our metrics to determine whether or not we had a good safety program out or not. And it turns out those numbers mean one thing and one thing only: how many people you injured. That's it. Has nothing to do with your safety program. But that's what we use. Now, unfortunately, we've gotten away from that. We're doing some of these other things, the leading indicators, which ties into behavioral-based safety and all this other stuff. You know, so we'll see this. So what is our metrics there? Make sure that we have that we're determining what the things that we put in place are actually working. They're actually doing what they're supposed to do to help us reduce our injuries on the safety. How often do you get your employee safety involvement? Employee engagement. You gotta match the commitment, obviously, then you have to have employee engagement. And it's more than employee involvement. There's a difference between employee involvement and employee engagement. All of you are involved because you are in this room, okay? You're involved. Now, the people that are reading the newspaper and all their BlackBerries and all that other stuff are not engaged. They're involved, but they're not engaged. That's the difference. That's how you need to understand all that. That's how it works out. That's the way it is. So we got to figure out how we get to engagement, because once we get employees engaged, the studies show this clearly. If we can get our employees engaged, they will take ownership of safety. They will not allow you to come into, if you're the company president, they will not allow you to come on the work floor without your hard hat or safety glasses or steel-toed shoes or whatever else you have, earplugs, whatever you have to have. They will stop the president of the company if they're engaged from coming in and doing anything unsafe. That's where we got to get to. That's how you drive the company. That's where you get to great and world-class safety. That's what we're trying to achieve. So we got to see how much are they involved. Are they involved engaged? Are they involved sometimes? Not involved at all? Who cares? Maybe. Unfortunately, a lot of people say, who cares what the employees think? We're just going to put out these policies and procedures. Well, if you're not involved in them, you're never going to have great safety. If you don't have stop work authority, look at that down there. If you don't have stop work authority where employees can stop work if they feel that anything they're doing is unsafe, if you don't have that, you'll never have great safety. Never, ever, ever, ever. It just ain't going to happen. Because if you don't have that authority, if the employees don't believe it, another thing is you can have stop work authority. You can say you've got stop work authority. There's a lot of union contractors that have in their contract that the employees have stop work authority, but they don't do it. They never do it because they know that's just it. Until we make sure that they really believe that they can stop work and they're not going to get retaliated against, that the company wants them to do that, because we're only going to do the thing that's safe. We're only going to do a job we can do it safely. So. How is management commitment showed? One time I get down into the downtown. I was down there at Georgia Pacific. They asked me to come speak to all their safety people. They had like 350 people from around the world. All their safety people came. And this was about 9 months ago. And they said to me, I get there early in the morning. The program started at 8. And they said, well, you're going to be speaking right after the company president, CEO. He's going to speak first. And then you're going to speak right after him. He's starting at 8. So what am I thinking? Oh, I'm going to speak after him. I'll be speaking about 8:15, right? Maybe 8:20. Right? I started at 9:15. He spoke without notes about safety for an hour and 15 minutes. That was a person who showed me that he was committed. That's why they got to do safety for specific. They understand that. He understood the importance. And he was going to convey that importance to all his safety people, that this was an important commitment to him, and he was not going to allow people to get injured or killed on his watch, and that he wasn't going to allow them to let them do that, fall down. That's what he said. That's what he was supposed to do. But he knew all his numbers. He knew where they were, the things we got to work on. He talked about all those, and he knew it. And he was very passionate about it. So we need to do that. And so and that has to go all the way down. You can have the president put it down if the plant managers say, oh, we've got to get all that stuff out. We've got to get the product out. Don't worry about safety. Get the product out. Obviously, then the CEO's message is not getting to them, and they need to have a wake-up call. This is part of the reality check that you need to be aware of. When was the last time employees were fired for safety violations? If you don't have a line in the sand, and you only have to do this once, and people will get the message pretty clearly, you need to let them know. These are our safety rules. If you violate these safety rules, you will no longer be with us. And we don't care if you are our best employee. If you violate these rules, I care too much about you to make sure that you go home safe and sound each and every night to your families and loved ones. I will not allow you to be here, because I will not put you in that position that if you're not going to be safe, then you're not going to be here. That's it. And until you're willing to do that, you only have to do it once. I told you, you only have to do it once. You find somebody, even if it's the best employee in the plant. You can say, sorry, you're our best employee, but I told you had to follow the safety rules, you're out of here. Goodbye. And then all the other employees say, God, he or she is really serious about this safety stuff. And maybe he's really committed to make sure I go home safe and sound each and every night to my families and loved ones. And maybe I can really trust him, and I got to do the same thing. I got to understand why this, and now I can see why this is important, because it's important to him that I go home. He cares about I go home. He's going to go home safe, no matter what. Anyway, all right, and how would you describe yourself in safety culture? This is the other thing. I get a chuckle out of this every time. I get clients call me sometimes, because I do a lot of litigation. I represent employers doing OSHA inspections and contesting citations. But I also help them with their safety programs to drive to the next level, which is a little different. Most lawyers don't do this. Well, I don't know any other lawyers, but I kind of do that a lot. Because I've been doing this for 30 plus years. So I understand how it is, and some of my positions I've been put in the ability to see things that a lot of lawyers don't see. But I have companies, clients say, well, Ed, we got to get a safety culture. We got to get a safety culture out there in the system. Well, the answer is, if you don't know, let me tell you, every company in the world has a safety culture right now. Okay? They all have a safety culture. Now, if you don't know what your safety culture is, it probably is telling me that it's lousy, okay? So don't tell me we gotta develop our safety culture. You already have a safety culture. You gotta question is it lousy or it's good? And if you don't know, it's probably lousy, so we gotta figure out how we take it from lousy to good. That's what they talk about safety culture. So you gotta understand that. Some people think it's something that you purchase or something. I'm not exactly sure. And then this is the other one. How about your safety character? How is your employee's safety character? And the character is when somebody what they do when no one else is around. Are they safe when the supervisor isn't around? And you find that out from your injuries and illnesses. You find that from your near misses. You find out from safety, first aid logs, all this type of thing. So I thought that anyway. And we talked about this, getting the specific roles on there, the specific roles, how to get to what they got to do to help get to the goal for the company, overall goal at zero injuries and illnesses. Oops, what happened? I don't know what I did, but safety committees. I'm a big proponent of safety committees, but you got to make sure that you're doing stuff with them, that they're involved, and this is how you get employees engaged. You get them involved, helping you to do an investigation, action investigation. You have them involved in developing your safety programs. You should be reviewing all your safety programs and policies and procedures every year. They should be involved. They know as much, if not more, about the particular hazards associated with that particular job. So we should be involving in those things. And under OSHA, under the lockout tagout, you are required every year to do periodic inspections, once annually, of all your lockout tagout procedures. Well, why would you not have your employees, your employees involved in the review of those things? The operators that run these machines day in and day out, they're going to be able to look and tell you, yes, this lockout procedure works. Yes, but no, it doesn't work because, by the way, the maintenance people make some changes, and now when you lock this thing out, there's still an energized motor over here. So you need to be, because you're not going to know that, so you need to be aware of that. And then the other thing about, if you really want to have great safety, you should be doing accident investigations on all your 300 log injuries and illnesses. And if you don't keep 300 logs, you should do it, even if you're not required to. You should anyway, because it's a great tool. You can look at that. You can see on the 300 logs, if you see that 60% of your injuries are in Department A, that means you got a problem in Department A. Go find out what it is and fix it. A lot of people don't want to do that. Oh my God, this is just we're going to do an accident investigation on all these things. Well, yeah, I want to do that, but I also want to do it on every first aid one. Oh my God, it's got first aid too. Accident investigation on first aid? Well, but for the grace of God, that first aid, the guy got just a cut, could have lost his hand. So why wouldn't you do it to make sure that you don't have another thing like that where somebody else does lose their hand? And here's the big one. If you really want to have great safety, you've got to go focus on near misses. And that's a hard one. Some people say near misses is a lagging indicator, and if you collect it and you don't do anything with it, it is true, that is a lagging indicator. But if you collect the near misses, and that's a hard thing to do because most employees don't want to tell you that they had a near miss because it may have been they were violating something, they weren't paying attention or whatever like that. So you need to be aware of the thing. But if you can get that information and then do a root cause analysis, action investigation, whatever, on the near misses, because once again, but for the grace of God, that person did get injured or killed. That's how, these are the steps that you take to go get from good to great, great to world class. This is how you've got to get there. And the only way you can get there, too. So, do you believe, the employees believe that when you tell them safety is number one? You need to know that. Safety observation system, once again, is part of the leading indicators, a whole series of leading indicators that you can develop for your company. And this is the biggest change I've seen in the safety profession in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. Who's going these leading indicators, developing these things, getting away from the lagging indicators because it did that. So, you know, and what percentage of your employees are participating in these programs too? Oops, I did it again. Where am I? You know, are we doing safety hazard analysis? Do we have preventive maintenance? That's another leading indicator. Pre-job safety meetings, leading indicator. Job safety requirements for vendors and contractors, another leading indicator. You look at what your contractors are, you know how good the safety program is. If you don't know what your contractors and vendor safety program is, shame on you, because you're maybe potentially bringing people in there that are going to create hazards that are going to injure and kill your people. So why would you do that? So, pre-work safety meetings, another leading indicator. Disciplinary policy, we talked about that. Are we retraining? Here's another thing. How many people retrain employees when they violate a safety rule or violate one of your company's procedures, you know, lockout, tag out, whatever, one of your procedures has come, whatever. If they haven't done it, well, why are you not retraining? Because obviously they don't understand it. We might give them some discipline, but no one's retrained. We should, if somebody violates our rules, they should go back to retrain. They should get retrained on those things. They obviously have some problems in not understanding the rules. So, training, who's doing it? We got classroom, video, computers. Most of it now is computer, videos, and PowerPoints, right? That's where most of the training is done. And now we're going to get ready for the test. We're almost there, so get ready. You cannot look, and we're walking around and embarrass you all if you're not paying attention. So you need to pay attention. All right, does the company employees how not to have an accident? Okay, are we training them how to avoid these problems? How often are you retrained? Once a year? Orientation, who's conducting the training. This is really important. I had a case one time where we had a double fatality, and somebody told, they were telling me, and I was handling the OSHA inspection, and I was with the safety person, the head safety person. She said, I said, well, I see here you do weekly training. You get everybody and do weekly training. She says, yes, we do it. I said, well, who does it? She said, Jim. I said, Jim, I don't think I met Jim. Which one of them is on your staff? She said, oh, he's not on my staff. He's the assistant warehouse manager. I said, he likes to talk to people. Okay? Does he have any safety training or background? No, but he likes to talk to people. Well, Jim didn't get to do any more safety training after that, sorry. Because he didn't know what we was talking about. So, we just said, oh, okay. Whoop, I gotta get back. All right. Are you ready for the test? Let me come down here. I'm going to walk around here. I'm going to make sure. Here's the test. I'm going to put up a sentence. I want you to count the number of F's in the sentence. I want you to count the number of F's in just a sentence. And don't count the F in NFSI. And at the top it says how many F's. Don't count that F either. Just count the F's in the sentence. All right. Now, have I made this perfectly clear? Is there anyone who is not sure of what I want you to do? So, all right. I'm coming up here. I see you on the things. You better get off of it. I'm coming up here. I'm coming up here. You've been watching it. You're going to pay attention. I want you to know what I'm doing. What am I doing? 20. Now, how many? 20. 20. Oh, we're 20. Okay. You know what the task is here.
As many F's as set.
All right. I'm going to give you plenty of time. Okay? I'm going to give you plenty of time. All right. Ready? Go. All right. I think everybody had enough time to do it. How many F's did you see? Who saw 3 F's? Raise your hand. Don't be shy. 3 F's. Come on. Even if you're wrong, that's okay. Be proud that you're wrong. All right. Who saw 4 F's? Who saw 5S? Who saw 6S? Who saw 7 or more S? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 80% of you got it wrong. I do not do this to embarrass you. I do not do this to embarrass you. This is I get 80, 90% of the people miss this every time I do it because I use this almost every one of my presentations. I am not trying to embarrass anybody. What I am trying to show you here is one thing and one thing only. We use PowerPoints, we use videos, we use computer-based training all the time on our safety training. And I gave you a specific task, I know exactly what I want you to do, and I gave you plenty of time to do it, and 80% of y'all got it wrong. What does that tell us about our training? We're expecting our employees to watch all these PowerPoints and videos and absorb all that information. They may sit there for a couple hours, and they're going to get all that information on there. That's all this is about. This is to say, we've got to understand, we've got to make sure our training is really focused, and that they've got to understand it, and we're going to have to probably repeat it a lot, and those type of things that people get. That's the only reason I put this up here. Because it's a truism that, people aren't getting anything. And we think we show them videos and we show them PowerPoints and everything else like, and they walk out of the classroom or orientation, and they can walk out on the floor and be safe. Well, probably not. That's why I did this. It's the only reason I did that. Keep doing this. What is the deal here? All right. All right, well, we got to keep our program fresh. We got to review our policies and procedures. We've got to get feedback from our managers and our employees. We've got to have communication as anything, is always important. Can't stop learning. And we've got to have a strategic and operational plan. And I thought this was it's hard to read that at the bottom. I thought this was a quote from John Wooden, basketball coach. If you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? Always remember that. It's safer than anything. It doesn't really matter, but it's really good too. All right, I keep doing this. What's the deal here? All right, what is this? Come on, stop. Maybe I'm not going in the right direction. Oh, this is the other safety tip of the day. Skydiving without a parachute is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Yeah, think about that. Okay. All right, well, just thank you. I want to say once again, thank you for your commitment to Safety Health. Thank you for putting on this program. It is important. Obviously, it's the biggest issue that we have in the United States with respect to injuries and injuries in America's workplaces. So what you're all doing is very important. So thank you for your commitment. Appreciate it.
Any questions? Any questions? I think he's scared. Did he scare you? Thank you, Ed. It's funny that one of the stories he shared is an identical story that I had to share with a major home improvement company a number of years ago. I was invited to their corporate headquarters to talk about fall prevention, as it was a condition within their stores affecting both employees and their customers. And so I went to their corporate headquarters, sat in their lobby, registered with the receptionist. I noticed on her desk she had a stack of their annual reports. They looked like good, like National Geographic magazine. They're just beautiful photos. It probably cost $25 each to produce their annual report. So as I'm waiting in the lobby to be escorted up to the executive office, as I'm going through and I'm looking at all their costs, how much money they spend on various line items, and of course when I open up the book, the first page, the very first 8 by 10. I mean, it was a beautiful photograph. And it was a photograph of 3 of their employees, arms crossed in front of their chest, and the title said, "Safety is job 1 at," and then the name of their company. It was a beautiful photograph, 3 very happy faces, and it was a big deal. I mean, it was the first page of their annual report. So as I was going through it, I'm trying to find some numbers as to how much money they spend on safety. I get escorted up to the executive office as I'm sitting down with their corporate officials, the head of construction, their legal department, their risk manager, vice president of risk management, and we started out the conversation, and I, of course, said, hey, I was fortunate enough to have some time downstairs reading your annual report about your company and your investments and how much money you spend on various aspects of your company. And I said, I couldn't help but notice on page 1 of your annual report was this beautiful glossy photograph of 3 of your employees with the caption of safety is job 1. And they all nodded and they started to grin, and it was much like Ed said. It was this bravado of, oh my God, this of course is a big deal to us. And then I asked a question. I asked, I've gone through your entire annual report, and I can't find any line item as to how much money you spend on safety, whether it's training or equipment, PPE, videos, and on and on and on. And they started to kind of, the comfort level changed. And they said, well, Russ, we spend a lot of money on safety. I said, well, how much? I mean, I could see how much money you spend on advertising and real estate, and I could probably find out how much money you spend on toilet paper. And toilet paper is not number one. Safety is not. You're telling me safety is number one, but you don't know how much money you invest in what you call number one, safety. And again, I got the same response, much like Ed did. In fact, it may have been the same company. Well, Russ, you don't understand the nature of our business. And I said, well, I do understand the nature of your business as it applies to the number of falls you're having. And I mean, that's why you invited me here. And given that you don't really know the number, the dollar, because remember, corporate America relates safety ultimately to cost, right? The cost of the injury, but also the cost of not having an injury, right? How much money do you spend preventing injuries is something you should be able to get that answer to. Needless to say, Ed, the meeting didn't go very well. In fact, it went very bad because they kind of folded up and said, well, obviously you're not on our team. And I guess I wasn't on the team. You quoted Yogi Berra and a lot of famous coaches. The team I wasn't on is the team that didn't want to deal with the problem. You see, the problem of safety is something that you have to invest in, you have to talk about, you have to know about. And sadly, they didn't. One question I do have for you, Ed, before you run off, and it's a question that comes up a lot, and it has to do with ANSI standards versus ASTM standards and all the different standards. The question I get asked a lot is, we published, the National Floor Safety Institute publishes the ANSI B101 standards for slip, trip, and fall prevention. And the question is, whether they're cited in the revised rule or not, what is the relationship, Ed, between ANSI and OSHA, generally speaking?
Oh, thanks. There was if you go in the OSHA regulations, the Code of Federal Regulations, 29 CFR 1910, I think it's .6. Those are all there. They list all the ANSI standards and all the other consensus standards that have been addressed or adopted by OSHA for that. And I think that's one of the things that they're trying to do is that, and if they're adopted by OSHA, then employers are responsible to comply with what's in those particular ones. Now, if they're not, and OSHA keeps, and they've been very much focused on this type, and that was one in their reg agenda. They talk about this thing about updating consensus standards because they want to kind of try to do the same thing again. They want to do an en masse adoption of those. Now, the problem I have there's two issues I have with them with consensus standards, to be quite frank. And I talked to the ANSI people about this, and they didn't like what I was talking about, but it was true. ANSI all the consensus standards, they go through a peer review of sort. They got a lot of people that have very knowledgeable about safety and particularly what the area they're looking at. It's just like the technical advisor group I'm on right now. A lot of really some of the top safety people in the country. And but we're not doing any type of economic analysis, feasibility analysis, or anything else like that there, or technological feasibility analysis. They don't do those, and they don't do those in those type of standards, unfortunately. So I have that issue, which OSHA is required in order for them to get a standard. They have to go do an economic and a technological feasibility analysis for every standard, and have to put in the data in that as part of their overall thing. So that was one thing the fact that the standards haven't gone through the rigor that OSHA standard has to go through to become a standard. And of course, but you know, you still got to kind of balance that on with respect to how safety is, getting better safety. Because things have changed, and a lot of consensus standards that were adopted in 1910.6, you know, are 40 years old, you know, or some of them are, but a lot of them have been updated, but not all of them. So that was the one issue, and then the other issue I have with it, when OSHA adopted all those consensus standards back in 70, 71, 72, you could go to any public library in the United States and find those standards in the library. And unfortunately, and this is where I got on ANSI about this and they didn't like this, all of a sudden all these different groups, the consensus groups, found out that you could sell these things for a lot of money. And therefore, you can't go to the public library and find them. You can't go on anything, anywhere. And that's what was my intention. I said, well, if you want us to adopt, because ANSI was coming in and meeting and saying, we want you to adopt all our standards. I said, fine. Well, then I guess you won't mind if we, as any ones that we adopt, that we include them on our OSHA website so that they're access to the public. Oh, no, that's proprietary information. We can't, we sell that. They got to purchase it. And it was a site, and I don't like that, to be quite true, because that hurts safety, to be quite honest. I don't see, because small and medium-sized employers can't afford it. Because I get, in cases when I'm dealing with it. One time I was working one of the big fast food restaurants, and they were concerned about their employees going out the back door, you know, out there, walking across the drive-through lane to take the trash in the trash bin. You know, it's all of them, they're all the same location. Have to walk across the fast food or the drive-through lane. It took me a day and a half to find it. And I'm talking with, this was an ANSI standard. They said, we understand there's an ANSI standard on requiring reflective vests on this thing. And I spent a day and a half trying to find it. I'm talking to the ANSI people. They say, yeah, I think we finally found it. And it was, so I had to purchase it, okay? I had to purchase it. It cost me $85 for 3 pages. $85 for 3 pages. You know, and this company could afford me doing all that stuff, but most small and medium-sized employers don't. The boiler standard, and that's the, I don't know which engineers group it is, but it's one of the boiler standard. It's a fairly large document. If you want to buy the boiler standard, it's going to cost you about $18,000 to get the full boiler standard. So that, I have that problem, those things there too, because I want to make sure everybody has access to it. If it's going to help, and they will help, but they got to have access to it. And unfortunately, that's my thing about consensus standards, is I worry about small and medium-sized employers because they probably need it more than anybody else. Big boys don't need it, so, or the big girls.
Ed,
Yeah.
what would keep an OSHA inspector from defaulting to the general duty clause and thus implementing or invoking one of those standards?
Well, once again, if it's not in 1910.6, then it hasn't been adopted by OSHA, so they can refer to it, and a lot of times you do that, so they can do that there.
Yeah.
But I think, once again, the general duty clause, the OSHA doesn't like using the general duty clause because you require, the burden of proof is pretty high. They have to show that you had knowledge of that, or that your industry had knowledge of that. And that's very difficult sometimes to prove that they would have known. Under this consensus standard, you're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, and you were only doing X and Y, you didn't do Z, and you should have known about that. You can say, well, I don't have the standard, and I never saw it, and it's not something our industry association ever talks about, so why should I be it? So that's the defense on that, although they try, and I see that a lot. I get those type of things, but if it's been adopted by reference, and I think that's what the change to the reg agenda, that thing about going to dealing with consensus standards, that's their goal, is just to somehow adopt and mass all the current consensus standards. And then they would be, you could be cited under general duty, citing that particular one that you would have, because once if it's adopted, then you, and it's put in the Federal Register, you have, or assumed to have knowledge, all employers are assumed to have knowledge of that.
But I mean, then you could say, well, a reasonable person should have had knowledge, am I correct?
No, not necessarily, no. Because I don't think a reasonable person does not go around the consensus standards. All the time. I mean, I read a lot of consensus statements, but I'm not a reasonable person, so. It's a little bit different, yeah, that's what I think, but, yeah. But they try, and once again, you gotta attack it on knowledge, the knowledge question. And you gotta show you had actual knowledge, or that your industry knowledge, that's what they have to show, or that they can use it for a reasonable, knew or should have known. And it says should have known is where they try to get you, but once again, it's still a high burden of proof. So, and if it's not an industry recognized, then you can make the argument, well, how would I should have known that? If the industry doesn't even recognize it. So it's 22 for OSHA. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, and remember, we got I had the other one up there about, remember, what was that? Yeah, no, right there, back it. Bad decisions make good stories and usually make the evening news, so we have to remember all of that. So, again, but thank you again for your commitment to stay.